Risk assessment. Through the risk assessment process, the project team will evaluate the probability and consequence of each risk. Not all risks will have an equal chance of occurring. Some risk events are more likely to happen than others. The impact and consequence of all risks will not be the same either. The risk assessment process will help the project team differentiate between critical and non-critical risks. Probability and impact. Once all potential risks have been identified, the next step is to assess the probability and impact of each risk. The probability refers to the likelihood of the risk occurring, and the impact refers to the potential consequences if the risk does occur. A risk probability and impact matrix can be developed for assessing the risks. The matrix has two dimensions, probability and impact, and both dimensions have two scales, low and high. Risk events that are highly likely to occur and at the time also have a high impact or consequence on the project will be the most critical ones. The project team will give maximum priority to managing these risks. The next priority will be the risks with a high impact but low likelihood, and the risks with a low impact but high likelihood. Finally, the risks with low impact and low likelihood will require the least attention from the project team. Risk severity estimation. We can extend the concept of risk probability and impact matrix and assign numerical values for probability and impact of each risk. The probability score of any risk can be anything between 0 to 1. For example, if a risk has a very high probability of occurrence, we will assign a score close to 1 for that risk. If any risk has a very low probability of occurrence, we will assign a score close to 0. Similarly, we can also quantify the consequence of a risk by rating its impact between 0 and 1. For example, if a risk has a very high impact on the project, we will assign a score close to 1. If any risk has very low impact on the project, we will assign a score close to 0. In this way, we will quantify each risk's probability and impact. We will then multiply probability of the risk by the impact score of that risk. The result will be the risk severity score for that risk. Since both probability and impact scores are between 0 to 1, the risk severity score will naturally be anything between 0 to 1. For example, if the probability of a risk is 0.20 and the impact score is 0.80, then its risk severity score will be 0.16, 0.20 multiplied by 0.80. If the probability of another risk is 0.80 and the impact score is 0.80, then its risk severity score will be 0.64, 0.80 multiplied by 0.80. If the risk severity score is close to 1, it indicates higher severity or implication for the project. That is why the project team will give more attention to risks with a higher severity score. The team can choose a cutoff score for accepting the risk severity. For example, an acceptable level could be a risk severity score up to 0.60. Only risks which have severity scores more than this number will be identified as critical risks, and these critical risks will have response plans.